a question that came up in my community, there was this need to understand how the direct path can help somebody who is mostly heart oriented. So in this video, I want to cover how that looks, because when we talk about the direct path, there's usually a higher appeal, an attractive quality to it from the intellectual side, because we're seeking through the path of knowledge primarily. So how does that pan out for those who are more heart-oriented, and that this scientific, rigorous investigation of what we call self, what we call self-inquiry? Who is the self? How can that relate to heart-oriented people? And first, we need to understand that what we seek is the ultimate understanding. No matter which way we take, we're seeking the ultimate understanding, and that is the unity of all things. Now, when we seek through the mind, the quality of the mind is that it wants to know. When we seek through the heart, the quality of the heart is that it wants to feel. So what is the ultimate knowledge? What is the ultimate feeling then? The ultimate knowledge is, of course, the source of all knowledge. It could even be said that it is like the Holy Grail, the fountain of knowledge. Nobody wants anything else through the mind, or any more important than the source of all knowledge. If you have the source of all knowledge, then you will know everything. Isn't that right? Doesn't that sound even like for a Hollywood movie? The seeking of eternal knowledge, all knowing. And so this is when we direct the investigation of who we are directly into the self. This is where we take all the knowledge. What is the knowledge or the knowing with which everything is known? And all knowledge must come from there. That's where we take it to the self, and we find that that which is awareness or being or self is the source of all knowledge. Now, the trade-off here is that the source of all knowledge cannot be a known thing. And so it is not a particular form or objective knowledge that we are going to find, but rather the source of it. And abiding in there is what generates this wisdom, which is because everything comes from there. The more you abide there and not in concepts or mental structures, then you will be flowing with the natural knowledge that is available to you. You are working through all-knowing self-knowledge as it filters through you. And that is the end, the collapse of the mind seeking knowledge in concepts, in relationships with the environment and understandings of dynamics and so on. We all go into the deepest portions of ourselves, and we find that. How does it look for heart-oriented people, though, who are not interested in knowledge but in feeling? In the same way, heart-oriented people seek this desire, this ultimate desire in the external world, just like mental projections are always looking for knowledge outside, for the ultimate knowledge, for the ultimate model of reality, for the ultimate explanation in scientific theory, and so on. When we direct all of that into the source of all knowledge, which is the self, we find that. In the heart-oriented people, there is the engagement in activities and relationships with the environment, with other people, and there is this seeking of that which gives them the most satisfaction to their heart. And there's always a yearning. There's always a path of devotion that is available. And that's when, through the direct path, we look into the seeking of that which we call the ultimate union, which is God. What is it that my heart is missing the most but my union with God? Here we find something interesting. that in our projection of God, of that which is everything, we are making a separation between God and me. And if I am me and God is God, then there is a separation. God cannot be everything, and so God cannot be God. It is a false God that we think of when we see it externally. That's the yearning. That is the confusion, that I see myself separate from God, which is all congruent with the ego. But what is not congruent is with our hearts to separate God from ourselves. We say, I am separate from God, but isn't it a lot more heavy to the heart to say, God is separate from me? In other words, he or she is there, that is over there, and I am here. So that is what's causing this yearning. How do we collapse this? Well, if we go into myself and we direct this seeking to what I am, I'm going to find that which is myself, my identity, without any distinctions. In other words, I'm not talking about me as a narrative. I'm not talking about me as a story, an image that I have, but rather the raw feeling of self. Same thing we did through the mental path, through the path of knowledge, through the path of understanding. We're doing it through the path of devotion. I want to find that which I am, which cannot be distinct from God. And so all images, just like all concepts in the mind, need to fall away. All images of me and God must fall away, and I remain as being. And in being, I realize that there is no distinction, that I fundamentally do not depend on a thought, a form, space, or time. There is no dimension available in being. And that's why we call it dimensionless being. And I find that there is not even the need for the word God anymore. There is just this being. There is no separation. There's not even a possibility for me to imagine anything but simply be. And that collapse, that final bridging, we could say, or merging of me and God is what the heart is looking. That is what the heart is needing. And something interesting happens here, which I found over time with dozens of people who are, not everybody is predominantly one or the other. We all have a combination of both, but some of us are more mental, some of us are more heart oriented. What I find is that when this collapse occurs, regardless of which path we took, knowledge or devotion, then there is a compensation from the predominant side of the mental, the path of knowledge. A devotion starts to arise. And this was definitely my case in my own path. There is a devotion that arises and it balances out the amount of knowledge that you have acquired. And it serves now your knowledge. This devotion, this love, begins to serve and inform your knowledge. And on the other hand, those who are predominantly heart-oriented, who suffer a lot, very emotional people, when they bring their seeking to an end, then wisdom will arise and it will start informing all their actions and all their beautiful contributions to people and the planet and so on. Service is balance always in this merging with awareness, God, infinite being. And you are no longer somebody who is seeking. You do have a predominant side, and the other side is just empowering it. And this is the flowering of the self that I love to see in people. And I would even add at this point that I have found that this is what in I think it's mostly Western science or New Age science, we hear that there is a heart and mind coherence. And in the ancient traditions, we used to call this the heart of being, shin or kokoro in Japanese. And this is the coherence of the mind and the heart, or brain heart sometimes is called. And you're living from a state of pure being, spontaneous being, no suffering, and just an enjoyment of life. I hope this is helpful for every one of you who consider to be their paths, they're seeking more mind or heart oriented, to know that both of these paths lead to the same source. And once in that source, everything gets compensated, balanced, and it'll begin to exude through you that which we call dharma, purpose, mission. It is in this collapse of the seeking externally into the self that everything gets resolved. If you want to join the community in which this question came up, go to the description here and find the link to join my free community and introduce yourself there. I would love to see you join and be part of these Q&As that are happening every week. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.